This is your first Q&A time writing at 160 words per minute. Your proper names are Mark Trout, Mr. Trout, South Orange, Marshall, Marshall Street, Garfield, Garfield Street, deposition exhibit number 1, interrogatory number 2, interrogatory number 5, 13th and Harrison. Ready? Will you state your name, please?
Mark Trout.
Mr. Trout, are you the plaintiff in this lawsuit?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Mr. Trout, have you ever had your deposition taken prior to this occasion?
No.
Has your attorney had an opportunity to explain the procedures that we use in depositions?
Yes.
What is your present address?
1225 South Orange.
How long have you lived at that address?
Since October of 95.
What kind of residence is that? Is it, for example, an apartment or a house?
It's a condominium. It's a condo.
Where did you live prior to 1225 South Orange?
1035 Marshall.
And how long did you live at 1035 Marshall?
About a year. 6 months or a year. About 6 months.
Were you living at 1035 Marshall on the date of the accident in this case?
I can't remember.
Do you recall the date of the accident in this case?
Not specifically.
If I were to mention January 27, 1995, would that seem correct to you?
It sounds correct.
You aren't sure whether you were living at Marshall on that date?
No.
Where were you living prior to the Marshall Street address?
1355 Garfield.
Would it be correct to say then that you were living either at the Marshall Street address or the Garfield Street address on the day of the accident?
Right, correct.
Mr. Trout, do you recall providing us some answers to interrogatories and other discovery requests in this case?
Yes.
Did you have a chance to review those prior to this deposition here today?
Yes.
Mr. Trout, I would like to show you what has been marked as deposition exhibit number 1 and ask you if these are your responses to the interrogatories that we were just discussing.
Yes.
I would like to go over these with you briefly to see if any of the information has changed since you provided us with your answers. Perhaps see if, since you answered these, you have had an occasion to recall additional facts or anything else. We just want to make sure that these are complete and up to date.
Okay.
In answer to interrogatory number 2, you stated you were not married. Is that still the situation?
Yes.
Have you applied for any workman's compensation benefits since the date of the accident in this case?
I have had to take sick leave days.
Do you understand what workman's compensation is?
Where someone is not able to work at all?
That's correct.
No, I never made a claim for that.
Have you received any unemployment compensation or applied for any?
No.
In response to interrogatory number 5, you listed 3 physicians or 3 healthcare providers whom you had seen as a result of the accident in this case. Have you seen any other doctors except those?
No.
You were not confined to a hospital as a result of the accident. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Could you describe the circumstances of the accident, please?
I was at a red light on 13th and Harrison, and I was parked. There was a car right in front of me, and we were at the red light. Next thing I noticed, there was a car coming behind me. It was coming up from behind, and it had its bright lights on. Then I noticed it wasn't stopping, and it didn't. She hit me.
Did you call the police?
Yes. Someone had a car phone, and they called for me.
Okay, what did you tell the police when they arrived?
I told them she hit me from behind. I told them she was drunk or stoned.
What led you to believe that she was drunk or stoned?
Slurred speech. You could smell alcohol. She sure couldn't walk straight.
How long were the police at the scene?
About 20 minutes.
Did they call for an ambulance?
No, I told them not to.
Did you tell the police that you did not feel like you were injured?
No, I didn't tell them one way or another.
Did you believe at that time that you had been injured?
A little, just kind of jammed up.
Any place in particular?
My lower back.
What were you experiencing?
Like I said, just kind of getting tight by the time the police got there.
When you say tight, can you explain that in a little more detail?
Not really. Just felt it getting stiff.
Was there pain in your lower back?
Not at the time.
Did you strike your head during the impact?
Yes.
Where did you strike your head?
On the top of the car.
What portion of your head struck the top of the car?
This part.
This is your second Q&A time writing at 160 words per minute. Your proper names are Herbert Buggage and Mr. Buggage. Ready? What did you do after the police left?
I took my car home.
What did you do upon arriving home?
I went to bed.
Can you recall approximately what time you got home?
It was just about 10:45.
Did you take any medications upon arriving home?
None. No.
Were you able to sleep that night?
Not very well.
Why was that?
I just hurt a little bit. I was really stiff in my neck and my back.
Would that be in your lower back?
Right.
When did you arise the next morning?
6:30.
How many hours of sleep do you think you got during that first night?
2 or 3 off and on, but I was mostly awake.
Did you pretty much stay in bed all night, or did you get up and say, read a book?
I just stayed in bed and was trying to get comfortable so I could sleep.
Okay. How did you feel when you arose at 6:30 the next morning?
My lower back was really quite painful.
Now, is this pain that you just now mentioned different from the tightness you described?
Sharper. It was a little sharper.
About when in the night did that start bothering you, the sharper pain?
That was after I got up and went to work.
So when you first arose in the morning, you didn't have that sharp pain in your back yet?
I had the initial pain that I had, and as I went to work, it just increased.
What time did you arrive at work?
7.
Was that your normal starting time?
Right.
How long did you work that day?
I can't remember for sure.
What would have been your normal time to get off?
2.
To the best of your memory, is that probably when you got off that day as well?
Probably.
Were you able to work your complete shift that day?
Just barely.
But at least you were physically present?
Right.
What duties did you perform on your job that day?
Paperwork.
Is that part of your normal duties?
Yes.
Is that what you would have done that day in any event?
Yes.
What does doing that paperwork involve?
Totaling sales, counting cash, making deposits.
And would you be sitting at a desk doing that normally?
Right.
What symptoms did you experience during the course of the day?
Just sharp lower back pains, hard to walk, couldn't lift anything.
What did you try to lift?
Anything. Just merely bending over was a task.
Did you talk to anyone during the course of the day about the fact that you had been in an accident and weren't feeling well?
My supervisor.
Who was that?
His name is Herbert Buggage.
Could you spell the last name, please?
It's just like luggage with a B.
Is Mr. Buggage still at that store?
Yes.
What did you tell Mr. Buggage?
That I had been in an accident.
Did you tell him how you were feeling?
Yes.
Did you ask at any point to go home during the day?
He asked me if I wanted to go home.
What did you say?
No, I couldn't at the time.
You say you couldn't?
Couldn't leave work.
Why was that?
Just the amount of work I had to do.
Where did you go when you left work that day?
Home.
And then what did you do?
I stayed there.
During the course of that day, did you experience any pain in your head?
Just my lower neck here.
But you didn't have what we would just call normally a headache?
No.
You described earlier that you had some lower back pain, and now you say you had some pain in your neck. When did you first notice that pain in your neck?
Just about the next day.
When you got up?
After I went to work, yes.
Other than the pain in your neck and your lower back, did you experience any other pain during the day?
No.
Did you stay home the remainder of that day?
Yes.
How was your sleep that night, the second night?
Not very good.
Did you go to work the next day?
Yes.
At the same time?
Yes.
How was work that day?
It was difficult.
Had you experienced any new symptoms since the previous day?
Not that I can recall.
Would you say that the pain in your lower back on the second day was better, worse, or just about the same as it had been on the prior day?
About the same.
And similarly, with regard to the pain in your neck, would you say it was worse, better, or about the same?
About the same.
When did you first see a healthcare provider?
A couple weeks.